I like it. Alright. Yeah, I got a
Are these house? I've never seen it.
No, that one's really nice.
One.
And that would have had enamel as well. You can see a little bit left on the blue stuff.
Yeah.
So it would have been cool.
Thank you. Thanks very much. It's a bit firmer around there actually, isn't it? We've taken the soil off over there. Brilliant. Those aren't from here, by the way. They should, well, they're just examples of
Roman coins.
They were supposed to go in the metal detecting thing, but nobody's been metal detected, so they haven't gone in there.
This is the Roman site from Langport, which was discovered recently, and they've uncovered the whole thing. And building companies going to build houses on it, so this Roman site will be lost to new housing developers based on the fact that we need houses 2,000 years of history built on. And there's some of the pools in some of the holes that have been dug.
Yeah, I'm coming, boss.
Right, I'll make a start. We also have, like there's one just behind you, very, very, very deep V-shaped ditches that may possibly hint at something else, we can't be certain. Possibly those kind of ditches often associated with defensive ditches, but it could equally be associated with keeping like livestock in, cows, sheep, whatever, within the field system. These ditches are then later built on by the building behind me, the corn dryer which is over there, and then obviously the villa itself. Our current ideas is that it's probably like a rural estate, so agricultural estate, so think farmhouse of the landowner, the estate owner, and some administration and things in the villa, and then you have the corn dryer, which name suggests you use to dry corn, and this building behind me. And this building helps head to that. This one, unlike the others, is not stone built. This would have been a timber structure. We know that because you've got a line of upright stones at the back, and then you have another line here. And what those upright stones are the remains of post holes. Essentially, they've dug a big hole, chucked a big upright timber in it, packed it with stone, stopped that timber wobbling, and then they'll build the rest of the structure off these upright timbers. Simply a roof, simply walls. Obviously, because the timber is all rotten and long rotten, we don't know for certain, but all that's left is the post holes and the stone fills. The purpose of this building is hinted at by, you'll see it better if you go around there, but you might just see there's two stone lines running through the centre. Some show sort of orangey, purpley colouring. This suggests heat expected, and the idea would have been you have fire at one end, that's the flue, they take hot air underneath the floor, on top of the floor. When come your harvest time, you bring in all your crops, spread out on the floor, dries it out, stops it rotting, stops it germinating, and then you use your crops to make your bread, or in the case of this side we have lots and lots of quite large pits, which they'll probably use to store their seed in. In terms of dating wise, real solid dates from, but initial dating coins, we think it's probably late the villa and these buildings probably late Roman, sort of 4th century, so 300 AD. Though we do have a couple of earlier coins that may be related to the ditches or may indicate early activity. So yeah. Any questions? Otherwise, feel free to have a look around there, but it's very muddy, be warned. Otherwise, if you follow it around and see the rest of the site, and any questions.
It's not a bumper. Move on in, guys, move on in. Nice and close, especially now that I gotta yell over the rain.
I'm going this way.
Dryer versus what is on your right, we call storage pits. Reasons will be obvious in a minute. So the corn dryer was typically used to dry various different types of grains, such as wheat, barley, and millet. We do have some evidence of milleting on the site, possibly a little brewing. We'll find out later in post-excavation once we're able to take a closer look at the different types of grains that we found and the different types of artifacts. Originally there would have been a fire sitting right in the opening here in this large pit, where the heat would have gone through the flue there, that center tunnel, into the Y-shaped opening, where there would have been large stones sitting on top where the grains would have been spread out and allowed to dry before being moved over to the storage pits here on your right. You can see evidence of the heating in the red stones that are in the center of the flue. Would have had to be heated at a high temperature for a decently long time in order to permanently change the color of the stone, which would have originally been similar to this grey-blue stone that's on the surface here. The herringbone pattern, as far as we can tell, is simply decorative. Seems to be a good choice in my opinion anyways. Looks quite nice. Once the grains were dry, they would have been moved on over here to the storage pits, where they would have been sealed back over with soil and kept for overwintering and into the next season. So that there was plenty of food. They would have been dug up and used as they needed, and they would have been kept free from the pests and the airflow to keep from spoiling. Please, as you make your way around the corner, it is very wet. We don't want to have to fish anyone out. These pits are rather deep, so please be careful. Don't want anyone to get hurt. And feel free to ask any questions you want as you move on, and otherwise you can head on over to the villa, where Steve will soon be giving another lecture.
Running down here, and it then becomes what's known as a courtyard villa, which is more shaped like that. And we are probably on the long axis, which is the main body of the villa itself. It's been completely trashed, it is gone. At the end of the Roman period, this site, people came in and they took all of the visible stone off this site. It became a quarry. We should have hundreds and hundreds of stone tiles, okay, just because they're the first thing you find that came like a collapse. So you're only left with what lies under the surface foundation of that site. So you have that would have been the courtyard in there. And the courtyard would have looked like this, because this is surviving remnant courtyard. What's nice is we do have some features in the courtyard. If you look over there, you've got this sunken feature room, stone, and sort of upright stone. That would have been clay lined, and was basically for collecting water. But that's a simple thing to say, you're how boring. But if you think about it, it would have been an ornamental pond. We're losing all of the nice stuff. It wouldn't have just been for collecting water, it would have been an ornamental pond. This is exceptionally rich people over here, so they wouldn't just have something functional like that. They also built a road at that point along there, which you probably stood on over there, which heads off that way to another villa and to the villa there. Now the villa is then built upon, probably reaching its peak about 250 AD, which at that point it would have been what we think of the Roman villa. There is a bathhouse here somewhere. It's not on this site, but it could easily be next field. We have evidence of mosaics. We have evidence of painted plaster. We have painted blues, reds and whites, classic coloured. They are very small, so we don't know what the frescoes were, but effectively it is what we think of the Roman villa. Relatively small, not a huge villa, but not a tiny one either. Definitely very high status. And as that happened, it's adapted and changed. That additional rooms over there, we're not sure what they are, but they're an addition. And if you follow me just over to here, I can show you some of the development of the site. Be really careful where you're walking there. Yeah, you just go there. From stepped-in foundation, that was the back wall of the original villa. If you look here, the wall has been taken away and a floor has been placed above the wall. So clearly something's happened there which has either created an entrance or at that point it's actually become an internal. And I think that's the case. Look, we have another one here. It comes down here. There's a corner here and it's coming up here. It's completely gold here. That's basically it, fallen down. So there was another room added. And it's likely they broke through and laid a floor in there. And that's probably this 3rd century when they're really starting to look at this villa properly. And at that point, they're also, there's another series of rooms down there. Where my colleague is cleaning up, he's cleaning up the floor, which is made of mortar, which is what you lay a mosaic on. And that mortar floor is put on top of an earlier stone floor in there. So it's becoming posher. They're adapting more of the Roman techniques. They're using things like mosaic. That really impressive, and the stone floor is very nice as well. That is like we are looking at the domestic market side, not where the farm workers live, where the people who own it. Mosaics in particular are hot. These sort of roof tiles are normally found on bathhouses or on what's called the portico, which is the porch that runs around villas. It's broken. It's only about half of it. It would have looked like that. The rectangular with 2 upstanding edges. And you lay that and then you put a half pipe over that between that one and the next one. That's a single Roman. With roof tiles there called double Roman. You've got 2. So it actually means Roman. It's not just a name because that's based on Roman technology. Which is quite nice. We found quite a lot of high status objects. This is a tiny piece of pottery, but it's quite important. This is a piece of stone. This is made in Southern Gaul, around 150 AD, Southern Gaul being France, so it's an imported pottery, very high quality, wheel thrown, slip fired, beautiful, and we often find a stamp of the maker on the bottom of these. They're quite ubiquitous, they were mass produced, but when you say mass produced, that's mass produced by hand, but they stamp the name on. They often have a highly decorated outside. This is a very small bowl. You often get a high decoration of scenes, dining room scenes, gods, stories, and pornography. You end up with saucy pictures on these bottles. And apparently the largest collection of pornographic scenes is held in the Vatican. That's later replaced with the British version, which is called Knee Valley Ware. And it's just as fine, but it's started being produced in Britain, presumably because the trades, someone's made them in the economy, someone's seen their market, haven't they? And it's started producing British versions of that to be produced. But that's again very expensive pottery. Although we find this on villas all the time, we also find Samian on poorer sites, or normal sites. And that's because probably everybody would own something of it. A dinner set, their favourite dinner set for when guests are there. So even though it's high status, it's still spreading down through the market. It's so high status though, we find it broken and repaired quite a lot. We will find this and they will put a copper pin in to hold it back together. So clearly, probably keep hold of this stuff for 200 years like we do now with the best of china. So rooms are added, mosaics are added. But about 350 something odd happens, and we've seen this on other villas. We start getting the construction of corn dryers, or cereal dryers. You've seen the one over there as you came around. That's a really nice example, standing on its own. Now that's actually relatively unusual. With villas, they are often placed in villas. I've seen a bathhouse that in 350 they just smashed the mosaic up and used to build a corn dryer in a bathhouse in a villa. So something's going on there which is affecting the economy. They are smashing up this construct just to have a corn dryer. And they've done that here. There's a corn dryer just there. That orange stain doesn't look like it's a black stain, but that is a corn dryer we haven't excavated, and it's in a room. So this villa, from becoming a posh house, starts becoming functional in almost an industrial way. Now for years people have said it's changing the economy, it goes from sheep farming to cereal. Because when we do environmental sampling for cereal dryers, we find burnt cereal grain. But interestingly, that cereal grain is germinated. And germinated grain is used to produce beer. So it looks like, going from sheep farming, there's an economic collapse, probably caused by civil wars in the empire, and Britain is on the wrong side of that civil war, so we collapse economically a bit, and they start producing beer instead. It's an interesting thing. I think it's particularly interesting because it means that the way they responded to an economic deprivation was to turn to alcohol as a solution. So maybe a lesson in there for us somewhere. Well, thank you very much for listening. If we move right there.
Things do get broken when you're excavating. It's part of it. These things are, this is probably the best part of 2,000 years old. So some things will break, but I will excavate it as carefully as possible.
Do you know a way to find out how it died? Like, could have been an illness?
So a zoo archaeologist. So that is a specialist. That's because the other half is still in the mud.
Other leg there.
So what we've done here is expose it. So you just take off some of the soil. So it's kind of also to show that it is where it was found. So it's not been placed there. It has been buried in that soil.
It's like you've got a really maintain a bit that you don't really want to break, and then accidentally drop it and break it, then what would happen?
Nothing. If it's potentially going to be displayed, it will get fixed together with glue.
And thus we have our tour of this site, and this is closing at 3 today, and this is the last opportunity you'll be getting to see it before they build a load of houses on it. Thank you for watching my video. Please like and share. Ta-ta.